The next session is 10 rapid-fire tricks to build a large and diverse subscriber base. And you can see our pictures on the panel. What we're going to do is I'm going to do a couple minutes of an intro, and then we're going to turn it over and just jump into the 10 tricks. Once again, I'm Mark Hazeltine, the email marketing manager at the Washington Post. We have Amari Clements from Women in Email, formerly of Cox, Brian Powers from Equifax, and Catherine Houlihan from American Cancer Society. So building a large and diverse customer base and why it's important. Obviously, everyone wants to have a large customer base. It's a hedge against attrition. You're going to have people opting out and unsubscribing. You're also going to have people like losing attention. So having, obviously, a large database is important. And the diversity to it, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. You want to have you don't want one type of customer. You don't want one acquisition channel. You want to spread it out and avoid risk. So you also often see, and it's come up before today, as email as being this identity, and it's sometimes referred to as a linchpin or as the glue. Every place I've worked at has always used email as the primary key. Once you have the email address, you can then build around that. You can collect stated preferences from people, them telling you exactly what they're interested in, even explicitly or by signing up for specific newsletters. And then you can get observed preferences from people based on what they're interacting with in your email or on your website. And then you can also overlay some demographic information on that as well. So thankfully, my slides and data matches up with David Daniels. But anyway, emails, everybody uses email. It spans all age groups. High 90% across almost every age group. Even among millennials, there's always those articles and listicles of what millennials have killed, napkins and mayonnaise and all these things. I just saw like BuzzFeed had one, and anyway, you never see email on that list. And email has a very high adoption rate with millennials, and it's even the preferred channel compared to for interacting with brands compared to social and text. We saw from the award winner just a little earlier, and this is a stat that gets kind of thrown around. It's for every $1 spent, there's $38 in return. It's from the DMA. Maybe it's a little out of date, but anyway, the return, even a double-digit return is desirable and is better than a lot of digital channels. And email is a more effective acquisition channel than social. So that's sort of the overview of why it's important, and you probably already knew that. You're at an email conference. But we're going to jump into some of the tricks, and first I'm going to hand it over to Amari.
Thanks. Come on. Okay, great. So my very first trick is to simply tell you all to attend events. Whether it's a conference such as this one where you have the opportunity to meet experts and influencers in the email marketing industry, or it's a sporting event, a trade show, even a food festival, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, anytime you attend any event at all, it is your opportunity to meet tens, if not hundreds of people and introduce them to your brand. Now, if you want to take it a step further, I would also suggest becoming a vendor or a sponsor. That way you can collect attendee feedback, you have your brands on public display, and then you'll be able to showcase your newest products and services. Now, when I used to work for Cox Business, they would set up several vendors' booths at a variety of events throughout the year. For them, attending the HIMSS conference was the most successful. They saw an 150% year-over-year increase in their subscriber leads. Other things to note, 84% of upper management believe in-person events contribute directly to their company's success. And 77% of executive decision makers find at least one new supplier at the last trade show they attended, and 92% of trade show attendees say they are there looking for new products. My second trick is to simply ask for referrals. Did you know that 82% of Americans say they seek recommendations from their family or friends when considering a purchase? And 67% say they are more likely to make a purchase if their family or friends have shared that product via social media or an email. Now again, Cox Business also has a referral program, and unfortunately it did not work for us how we wanted it to work. What we noticed was that from January to December of last year, our number of referrals decreased by nearly 50%. So some of the tactics that we used, some of the optimizations that we used, were conducting surveys and performing wellness calls. We actually gave a few thousand customers free internet upgrades. And then, of course, we spent some more money in our SEM and SEO campaigns. And last but not least, I would tell you all to provide email-only offers. Companies like H&M, they were doing 25% off plus free shipping, and we all know that free shipping really matters when it comes to making that final purchase. And then companies like Krispy Kreme, they were doing buy one, get one free, dozen donut deals if you became a member of their Krispy Kreme rewards program. So email-only offers work for both B2C and B2B companies. Companies like Litmus, unfortunately, they're not giving you free donuts, but they are giving you invaluable information, such as their 2019 State of Email report. In order to access this report, you do have to give them your work email address. So depending on your line of business, depends on how you can utilize this tactic, what your offers can be, and what your discounts can be. But keep in mind, just like when you see out there the giveaways and the offers, everyone who wants your offer doesn't necessarily want your email. So if you start noticing that your open rates and click-through rates start declining from those particular customers, that could be one of the reasons. To that end, I would suggest that you all use email preference centers. This is my personal preferences with Litmus. At this time, I'm only receiving the news and the updates. But having this option means later on I can come back and receive more emails if I see fit. It's a win-win situation because at the end of the day, I don't have a bunch of stuff in my inbox that I don't care about, and then Litmus still has me in their database. Overall, the goal for companies is to retain the subscriber information because then you can put them in some type of win-back re-engagement campaign later on down the road. Thanks.
So I'm back with my tips. And I have to thank Anand earlier for referencing the Dale Carnegie book from 1936, because I'm going to talk about email newsletters, and even though this is 1990s, you won't roll your eyes at me. So the whole what's old is new again is relevant for this as well. At the Post, we're very bullish on newsletters. We have 65 different newsletters and 10 email alerts that people can sign up for. And we view email newsletters as both an acquisition and a retention tactic. We have newsletters that are kind of like the one that you see on the screen. It's PostMost. It is a feed-based newsletter. It is essentially scraping the site every day around noon, and it's pulling the top stories from the site, from all our site sections, and is sending that out. It includes links back to the website, and we do have a paywall on our site, so the acquisition piece comes in is people are interested in these articles. They will ultimately have to become a paid subscriber if they want to read more than a handful of articles a month. The retention piece is because subscribers are getting this and clicking through and obviously reading multiple articles after their visit. So it establishes loyalty and repeat visitors to our site. One of the tactics that we use, so I'm going to kind of show a few of the main things that we do, and I'd recommend where you can kind of pull levers. Paid campaigns are great to try to get new email addresses, but there are also within your own media and within your own site, there are different things you can do, and I think it's been mentioned, preference centers and management pages. We have a management page that lists all 65 newsletters. It's organized in between 9 and 11 different categories. But people are self-selecting what they're interested in and are essentially creating personas. So somebody who signs up for a politics newsletter, an energy policy newsletter, and a business newsletter is going to have a slightly different persona from someone who signs up for parenting, working out, and lifestyle and relationship advice. We also have contextual signups scattered throughout our site. On our main page, actually, we have, if you're an unknown user, if you're not logged in, you're coming to our site, we use some of our house inventory to get you to sign up for emails and sometimes aggressively. pushing you to, to sign up for different newsletters. And if you're a logged in user, we know who you are, you generally don't see those, just because of the importance of kind of capturing, particularly people that are kind of the one and done, that are coming, sideways from other referral sources. We want to, have them become a regular subscriber of our content, and which is why we have the email push. We also have contextual signups throughout our site. So on the left, it may be a small example, but it's a sports article. And you can kind of see the sign up there is for a fantasy football newsletter. We also have NBA newsletters for different, if you're reading basketball articles. On the right is another different example of a contextual sign up for a politics page. We're pushing our newsletter Power Up, which is like an early morning politics newsletter that covers the whole DC region. This is my little throwback Thursday. Before the Washington Post, I worked at National Geographic. And one of the things that we did is, to kind of prove the value. We sometimes we're getting resistance of, interfering with the aesthetics of the page by having some interruptive tactics and flyouts and light boxes. One thing we did is we proved to the executives, and we showed the lifetime value. And the a monetary value for every email that we acquired on our site. And once they saw that number, we were given a lot more leeway. And you can kind of see one of the things we did was a flyout that was pushing a newsletter, and you signed up, and you also got a field guide to photography. And I think this is actually from 2011. This incentive ran for a couple years. We would always test it against things because people internally were saying, oh, we need to swap that out. It's getting old and stale. And every time we tested anything against it, whether it was a travel guide, parenting, different types of photo guides, this always won. So it had quite a lot of staying power and is aligned with our brand. And then it was also aligned with some of our core newsletters. At the Post, we also do pop-ups. Just if anyone from the EU, from EU and the GDPR enforcement is here. This was before GDPR, but this was something that we targeted for. There's obviously a lot of interest in the Trump administration, and this was something that we had targeted when we were launching an international newsletter. So for international people coming to our site, we gave them a free trial subscription, and we also were having them, they could sign up to receive our new international newsletter that was launching the Monday after the Friday inauguration. And we had a couple different variations that we used, and we played around with like different language. You can kind of see like the Trump, using Trump versus not using Trump in the call to action. My next tip is surveys. So we have a research group that tends to send surveys to our users and our subscriber base pretty frequently, and we do it for newsletters too. And historically, we had done this after a newsletter launched, usually 2 or 3 months later. And then if it was a mature newsletter, we sometimes do it a couple years later. And the point of the survey is really just to find out what people liked about it, what they didn't like. We had some open-ended questions, and it would give us valuable feedback. And we were just making sure that the topics that were covered in the newsletter were things that the subscriber base was really interested in. One thing we did last summer around the World Cup is we were thinking of launching a World Cup newsletter, but the United States, as you know, wasn't in the World Cup, and we weren't quite sure if our international readers would be interested in coming to the Washington Post to get coverage of their country's team or other countries. So what we did is we actually launched a survey, and we shared it on social. We have Stephen Goff, who's a big soccer reporter, tweeted it out, and then other reporters tweeted it out. We had people that have friends and relatives that are interested in soccer. We shared it with them, and we had an overwhelming response. We ended up launching the newsletter, and it ended up being one of our most successful newsletter last year. We had something similar around the Olympics. We have pop-up newsletters that are meant to have like a short shelf life. They're not things that are going to be around. So the Olympics obviously was around during the Olympics. The World Cup just lasted during the duration of the World Cup. But it had, again, the highest open rate. It was double the open rate of our overall newsletter averages for the year. And it was nice because it brought in a lot of new readers to the Post, people who we hadn't signed up for our newsletters, weren't really coming to us regularly. So it was an effective acquisition tactic, and something that we've actually now rolled out to some other newsletters as well. And with that, Brian.
Thanks, Mark. The challenge isn't always to build a base of paying subscribers. Sometimes we want to build a community that's opted in of consumers that have shared interests. So it's not always about the bottom line and pushing product. So we had such an engagement, myself and my team, last year. It turned out to be the most fun project I've worked on at Equifax. We built up several million customer base lists, and the goal was just to keep them engaged, drive them back to the website, and do the right thing. Just educate them, provide them the financial savvy that they need so that they can make proper credit decisions. I've got some examples of the copy, thanks to Brightwave for working with us on this whole campaign. And I'll get into some fun statistics after this about how well received it was. But these are real employees, the images here, all different levels within the organization. Yes, people did find them on LinkedIn and ask them support questions. So be careful when you do that. That'll be my tip 6.1. We used a similar layout. We varied it just a little bit. We didn't include a toll-free number because we're not marketing anything to them, so it wasn't a big impact into customer operations. And also, if you look in the heroes, if you click on those, it brings you back to the website. Again, not promoting a phone number, but more information. And the consumers started to eat this up, right? So by being a guide, being that almost a parental figure and trying to educate Americans and not pushing product, we built an open rate over 60%, right? And this time of year, I think the only open rate higher than that's going to be the refund check coming back from the IRS. So less than 1% unsubscribing, very high engagement rates, people not replying and saying, you suck, or anything like that. So they're not calling back. And what really helped us, our CEO went to Congress and said, we want to be the most friendly consumer reporting agency, right? So number 1 out of 3. So it's a goal that's then emanated and waterfalled throughout the organization. So hunting for an ROI for a campaign like this, there really isn't one, but it's the right thing to do. Another tip we have, WinBack. So 90 days ago, I took over WinBack. So we've got several million alumni customers who used to pay for services. And the best way to retain customers is never to lose them in the first place, right? So we've all seen this statistic. I'm surprised it hasn't come up already today, or maybe I was in one of the sessions around the champagne wall upstairs. But it costs 5 times as much to attract a new customer than to keep an existing one. I think we've all heard that. When I was searching on the internet for statistics on WinBack, all I got was retention statistics. So I'll share some WinBack statistics in a second. But the earliest mention of this was from Bain in 2001, which coincidentally is where Fred Reichheld worked. Anybody else know Fred Reichheld? Net Promoter Score father, right? So before he got into voice of customer, he was all about customer retention. So on and on, lots of statistics, but in the end, when you have a customer, it's easier to upsell, far easier to upsell to them than to try to win a new customer. So 90 days in, so I'm here to share some of my statistics, right? So here's what we're doing. Again, working with Brightwave on this whole series of alumni. We're varying the copy, and we learned at last year's EIQ, it starts with the subject line. You can't get past the subject line. If it's not engaging, enticing enough, then they're not going to read the rest of the message. It doesn't matter if you have movable ink and sticky footers and Doug the Pug in your emails. Thanks, Laura. So it starts with that. So test emojis, test lines. We tried to put in people's names into the subject line, and it looks like you're pushing product. Some of our lowest open rates. So personalize, but just don't push it. Downselling. When somebody leaves you, maybe it could be for economic reasons. So you try to do an exit survey. Why are you leaving? You try to save them at that time. If you can't, you want to win them back, then find a lower priced product that might fit their budgetary needs or their services better. Time since cancellation. We have a 15 to 25% open rate on recently canceled customers, right? So within the last 30 days. So imagine you leave AT&T, within 30 days, come back, right? And you've already with Comcast, Roku, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, et cetera, you've moved on. maybe in a couple months. But we're having great success with people who just left because maybe they had a service issue, maybe they didn't understand the full product. So engaging with like customer success principles and make sure that they're using all the features that they had available to them. Day of week, big finding. People make financial decisions during the week, not on the weekend. Also at 3 a.m. When you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is you clear that inbox, right? Delete, delete, delete. So if you send something like a financial decision, something like this midday, it's much more likely to be read and acted upon. And not everybody resonates to the same offer. So 50% off for 2 months is the same revenue as 1 free month, right? After 3 months, it's the same amount of revenue. But it's a different lure like in fishing. It's just gonna have a different reaction with different people. We had a similar layout in our other campaigns, but the best practice here is to vary it, right? Keep mixing it up, see what resonates with this alumni audience. So we'll just keep mixing the content, the order, something that we're working through right now. Do we lead with education? Back to what I talked about before. Be their guide, be their partner, be the teacher, and if you're interested, come back to our website. We've got an offer for you. But the overall goal here is to optimize the customer lifetime value. So you want to win them back at a fair price, at a product that works for them, so that you're not fighting to keep them later on, because it is 5 times more expensive to try to win these customers back. But hopefully with a good fundamental win-back program, it won't be that expensive for you.